When Donald Trump was elected, it was pretty apparent that he would be taking a wrecking ball to what little progress President Obama made. Now, when it comes to diplomacy, it's no different, because President Trump will most likely be undoing one of President Obama's greatest achievements, and that is the Iran nuclear deal. So, Reuters reports President Donald Trump is expected to announce soon that he will decertify the landmark international deal to curb Iran's nuclear program, a senior administration official said on Thursday, in a step that potentially could cause the 2015 accord to unravel. Now, in decertifying the Iran nuclear deal, Donald Trump contends that he wants to do this because the deal is, quote, an embarrassment, and he also calls it the worst deal ever negotiated. Now, that's a statement that is not only idiotic and hyperbolic, but it's also wrong, because this is a deal that actually is one of the best the United States has ever negotiated. But nonetheless, he also states the Iranian regime supports terrorism and exports violence, bloodshed, and chaos across the Middle East. That is why we must put an end to Iran's continued aggression and nuclear ambitions. They have not lived up to the spirit of their agreement. We must not allow Iran to obtain nuclear weapons. Well, this deal does just that. It prevents Iran from getting a nuclear weapon. And we know this because the IAEA is inspecting Iran. They've allowed them to come in and make sure that Iran doesn't get a nuclear weapon. And I love how he states here that they haven't lived up to the spirit of the deal. Meaning, they haven't overtly violated the deal like I am implying, but, they just haven't lived up to the spirit of the deal. Well, what does that mean, Donald Trump? That doesn't mean anything. You can't just decertify a deal because you feel as though they don't live up to the spirit of it. So that's a bullshit excuse. And when it comes to Iran's support for terrorism, well, Donald Trump doesn't seem to have a problem with Saudi Arabia, who not only supports and exports terrorism, but is literally carrying out terrorism themselves against citizens of Yemen. In fact, Donald Trump cares so little about Saudi-induced terrorism in Yemen that he literally just recently approved a weapons deal for them to the tune of hundreds of billions of dollars. So not only is this a double standard when you compare Saudi Arabia and Iran and his treatment of both countries, but it's also a bullshit reason to decertify the Iran nuclear deal. So what's this really about? Well, I think that Donald Trump's hidden agenda is pretty apparent, actually. This is about war. Republicans have been wanting to invade Iran for a very long time. So in saying that they're not complying with the Iran nuclear deal, well, then you can sell to your base that, maybe they're developing a nuclear weapon. And if they are developing a nuclear weapon, what's the next logical conclusion for Republicans? Well, of course, we have to go in there and invade them and make sure that they never build a nuclear weapon. We have to take out their nuclear facilities. I mean, this is about militarism. This is about the military-industrial complex profiting off of war and Donald Trump acting as a puppet to them. And in constantly attacking the Iran deal when they have no good reason to do so, when they claim they don't want Iran to get a nuclear bomb, when this stops them from getting a nuclear bomb, I mean, Republicans are just paving the way for intervention. They're incredibly transparent, and we cannot allow Donald Trump to do their bidding while pretending that, he's really concerned about Iran not holding up their end of the bargain. But they are complying with the deal. They are holding up their end of the bargain, and we know this not because Iran tells us so. We know this because the IAEA has told us so, because they went to Iran's nuclear facilities. They've inspected, and they said, yep, they're not building a bomb. So why do Republicans like Donald Trump continuously try to vilify Iran and claim that they're not complying with this deal when clearly they are? Well, as ex-CIA analyst Paul R. Pillar puts it, one purpose of the opponents in talking so much about Iran's, quote, nefarious, malign, destabilizing behavior, or NMDB, is to arouse an emotional aversion, to cultivate general distaste for Iran that will make people believe they will get their hands dirty by having any dealings with it. But sound foreign policy is not a matter of emotion and distaste. Many of the most important international agreements are ones reached with adversaries rather than friends, and are important precisely because they were reached with adversaries. Emotion and distaste are enemies of reason and prudence in advancing one's national interests. Opponents of the Joint Comprehensive Plan of Action, which is the Iran deal, also have tried to portray Iranian obligations as far more extensive than anything Tehran ever signed up to, as part of a strategy of getting people to believe, contrary to repeated findings of the international inspectors who scrutinized the Iran nuclear program, that Iran has been violating the agreement. But I mean, really, it goes further than what he's saying here, and vilifying Iran and trying to get you to think that they're not complying with this deal. They want to invade Iran. Now, of course, if Donald Trump decertifies the Iran nuclear deal and the plan unravels, it's not like we'd invade them tomorrow. I mean, this is all about paving that path towards intervention. This is what we do. We kind of plant that seed, and this is what they're doing. They're planting the seed and hoping the American people will pick up what they're putting down, and that, hey, Iran, even though we tried to stop them from getting a nuclear bomb, well, they didn't listen to what we had to say. They didn't comply with the agreement. So clearly, maybe the government is justified in actually intervening and bombing Iran. These are things that we have to be mindful about, and we need to be hyper conscious of every single thing that politicians do, especially neoconservative Republicans, because they're willing to jump on any potential opportunity they can take to intervene in a country. I mean, they know that intervening in Iran, that's easier than intervening in North Korea, for example, because when you intervene in a country like Iran, you have Israel on your side, you have Saudi Arabia on your side, who hates Iran because, I mean, there's historical, hatred there. You have Saudi Arabia, which is a Sunni state. You have Iran, which is a Shia state. So the U.S. government, and Republicans in particular, they want this deal to fail because they want war with Iran. That's exactly what this is about. So don't let them tell you otherwise. In telling you that Iran is not complying with this deal, Donald Trump is lying. And we know that he's lying because he has to say really weird, stupid phrases like they're not complying or living up to the spirit of the deal. That's fucking horse shit. Yes, they're complying, and again, we know this not because of what Iran tells us, but because of what the IAEA tells us. International inspectors tell us that they're living up to and complying with the Joint Comprehensive Plan of Action, and we should not trust our bloodthirsty leaders like Donald Trump. We should trust international inspectors that don't have anything to gain from lying to us about this.
Support this podcast by becoming a patron at patreon.com/Humanist Report.